Hello, it is Fabian Williams, marriage and family therapist with lifeanew.com. Today I'm coming again with a sobering topic, I believe, as I'm talking about childhood sexual abuse. So there are many things happening right in this season, and I am not in any way debating on guilt, debating on innocence, any of that. But I am coming with the importance of this topic now that it has been exposed. Um, it is vital that we talk about the topic of childhood sexual abuse because it is extremely common. And as a matter of fact, I think I have a bad number because I have 42,000, but I think the correct number is 42 million individuals is the, yes, 42 million individuals in the U.S. are walking around as survivors of childhood sexual abuse. So we need to be talking about this. We need to be talking about the fact that it can happen to anyone, anywhere. It can happen by anyone, anywhere. And we need to be aware of some things like, one, the warning signs of a child being touched or harmed. To what we can do about it, how we can be proactive versus reactive, and how when we are reactive, we can do that appropriately so that the children are served. Many know that I primarily work with couples. I work with women as well, and my focus is trauma as a certified clinical trauma professional. I don't lean to that as often, but most of the time when someone's sitting in front of me, if I see anger, I'm looking for trauma. If I see sadness, I'm looking for trauma. If I see depression, anxiety, anything, I'm looking underneath that to find the trauma. And CSA is a trauma that is so common. Sorry, I'm going to abbreviate childhood sexual abuse to CSA. It's so common that it is often the root, and it takes a few sessions for people to get that therapeutic rapport before we find out, but usually we hit that root when someone is having some drastic mental health issues. So, what is CSA? CSA is sexual activity with a child by an adult, an adolescent, or an older child. It can be touching, non-touching. It can be anything from exposing a child to pornography or touching a child inappropriately. Having actual intercourse, sexual intercourse with a child. So all of that counts in the definition for CSA. The numbers are as high as 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys. Why do we know that? Because although the real numbers are like 1 in 6, I believe, and 1 in 13, 60% of childhood sexual abuse goes unreported. Why? Because we've made the victims into individuals that are looked at as if it was their fault, they asked for it or anything like that. We don't do that on purpose. But when we support the perpetrators, that's what we're doing underneath that. 91% of them are abused by someone they know, and someone the family often trusts. Someone them or the family trusts, somebody who has groomed them to the point where they have begun to rely on this individual. And many of those are right in the I want to say the numbers are as high as 70%. And I'm sorry, I did not look that one up. The importance of this video is that 95% of these are preventable. We can't prevent all of them because we just can't be that hyper vigilant and that aware of everything that's going on at every moment. But there are some things that we can do. So one thing we can do is know the signs. One of the signs is sexual imitation. When you see a child doing sexual play or things like that, sometimes there's exploration, I agree. But when it is just so sexual in nature that they've either seen it or experienced it, you need to truly follow up on those questions or that intuition that is going off. Another one is sexual conversation. When the sexual conversation goes beyond, I've had some students in my classroom who say some things that I'm just like, okay, I am teaching middle schoolers. this is not a conversation they should be having. So they are either experiencing it with another individual their age, or someone has potentially victimized them. And I often look for the trauma. I don't assume the trauma, but I do look for the trauma. Those that are upset with touch and upset with regular removal of clothing, like for a bath or bath time or normal changing of clothes, you'll find that that child may get upset with those things. The obvious sexually transmitted infections, pregnancy, genital issues of some sort that should not be in a child, because most of these, and I can't remember the number, I'm so sorry. I wish I had numbers because I like to cite exactly the percentages, even though we know all statistics are a little bit off, but the majority of the individuals experience CSA before the age of 8. So if you have an STI in somebody under 8 years old, you can pretty much know somebody's messing with that child. If they are upset around individuals, this is one that's a little questionable. I mean, all of them, I guess you could have a question about, but this one is really questionable because sometimes children give us the heads up that they don't like a specific individual. If they give us the heads up, we have to trust that child, give that child that level of agency to say, I don't want to hug this person. I don't want to touch this person. I remember growing up in church and forcing my children to hug individuals in church. I don't know why I did that. I didn't know any better. We thought that everybody was quote unquote good people. And so we kind of forced that on the children, and we should not have. We should give those children the ability to say, no, I don't really want to hug them. Don't disrespect them, but no, I'm not going to let you hug and kiss on my child. Another sign is anxiety and depression, drugs and alcohol, risky behavior, being hyper sexual, hyper anything, like just that impulsive behavior. And you'll find this in adults too. Because of these 42 million people, many of those are adults. Many adults will never tell. 60%, remember we said, will never tell anyone. And only 10% actually report to authorities. These are some scary statistics. So another sign, I'm sorry to jump around, but another sign is nightmares and terrors and just fear, just overwhelming amount of fear. Yes, some of these can be related to your child's personality, but some of them was developed as their personality. I've been studying John Bowlby and attachment theory, and that whole idea that attachment can be interrupted. So if you have a child that is securely attached and then they are a victim of childhood sexual abuse, that attachment can be interrupted, and they can move to that level of insecurity, of anxiety, of avoidance, of disorganized, disoriented, all of those things. These are major, and this is like just a clarion call. It is, we have to do better at protecting and loving on our babies. So what can you do today, right now, if you find out that a child you know, a child you love, your child is a victim of CSA or a potential victim? First of all, don't have a fit. Many parents have a fit. I know I, as a survivor, was hyper vigilant in the area of keeping my children away from people, and I think I made it worse for them by being so very overly protective of everything that they did. So don't have that fit that I did. Do better. One way to do better is believing the victim, never blaming the victim, never shaming the victim, never making them feel like there's something wrong with them, supporting that victim, letting them know they're not alone. That is that whole normalizing thing. There are 42 million people walking around who were victims at one time. 42 million survivors. So they are definitely not alone. So normalizing it, letting them know it is not their fault. Most victims, I should say most, because I don't want to put out a generalization that's not true, but most victims blame themselves. Most victims see themselves as the problem. I shouldn't have wore that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said yes. I shouldn't have said no. I shouldn't have gone to that hotel room. I shouldn't have, whatever. And I'm going beyond to older sexual abuse. But remember, This is up to 14, and depending on the age difference, that 5 year gap, it can go up to 16. So all of those 16, some people use the number of 18. So the statistics depend on what was being, what the benchmarks were. But these numbers just fluctuate based upon the area, based upon the laws, based upon the state, there's so many things. Anyway, sorry to digress. But let them know it's not their fault. Knowing the signs, being aware of the signs, not being overly anxious about the signs in your child, but being aware of those signs and intervening when you see something that doesn't look right. Those individuals at, I believe it was Penn State or one of the universities where that was happening, there were so many people that said we kind of felt like this was weird. Intervening, and I know it's hard to be the one to snitch, let's use that word. But sometimes when we feel that, we have to go further in protecting those individuals. I talked earlier about returning agency to the child. Returning agency. They are in control. They are the agent in control of their life. They do not have to go by somebody else's boundaries. They don't have to have their boundaries violated on a regular basis. If that means giving them control of their bedroom looking a mess, that may return some level of agency to them. So my boundary is that you don't walk beyond my doorway. And I know this is messing with some old school parents, and I was an old school parent. So you have to figure out what that means for you and your household. But please try your best to try some of this. Private adult sexual situations. That is vital, especially to a child. Well, to all children. Like, I hope this isn't a personal opinion, but I don't think any child should be exposed to adult sexual activity. I just don't. I don't think it should be exposed. They should be exposed to it in movies. I don't think they should be exposed to it on TV. I don't think they should be exposed to it, especially in their household, because I don't want to make sex abnormal, but I don't want you to make sex so normal that they begin doing it so early, that they have nothing, one, to look forward to, and two, they lose childhood because they're lost in something that shouldn't have even been stirred up. Last but not least is, of course, counseling. Counseling is vital. As a counselor, how about this? As a survivor, I would not have made it without counseling, without the Lord and with counseling, those two together. So it's Jesus and therapy, not Jesus or therapy. So counseling is vital. Counseling may be important for the adult as well. So I advocate for individual, I advocate for family, but I advocate for adult as well, because adults are impacted as well. This is a sin, a pervasive problem that just spreads like the plague. Like, think about how quickly COVID spread all over the place. So the shame and the blame and all of that stuff just spreads, and then you find yourselves victimizing one another instead of going after the individual. So counseling is vital. Getting a good, especially if it was penetration or if it was ongoing, if it was that whole complex trauma thing, a good trauma specialist is important when you're getting counseling for an individual who has been through it. EMDR is good. Oh, I can't even think of the name of PE. When I think about it, I'll add it in the notes, because it is important to know what types of therapy to go for. My mind is just going a mile a minute. But I close with, if you or someone you know is struggling from childhood sexual abuse from their past, or if it is present, do something. Say something. Let's start the conversation. A good friend of mine started the conversation, and it stirred up some anger, but I want to lean towards the protection side of it, regardless of what that specific situation. We're taking it out of specific situation, and we're going to the general population of 42 million. 42 million. individuals in the U.S. alone. This is a worldwide problem. In the U.S. alone, we have 42 million survivors. Again, Fabian Williams, Marriage and Family Therapy with lifeanew.com. If you need help with this or any other situation, please do not hesitate to reach out to your local therapist, to your local church, to your local emergency numbers. I know the suicide number is 988. I know we have the Resolve Network, these places that are available 24 hours a day, because these are major issues that we just have not been dealing with well. So now that we know better, let's do better. Questions, comments, anything, please let me know. I'm not trying to stir up wrath, but I am trying to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. I pray you are blessed. And again, Fabian Williams, lifeanew.com.